In the heart of a family bound by land and legacy, betrayal can fracture even the strongest roots. This is the story of Charlotte Holloway, a daughter cast aside, who turned her pain into a weapon to reclaim what was stolen. Welcome to a tale where inheritance is a battleground, and vengeance grows in the shadows. The night my father died, rain lashed the Holloway family farmhouse in Vermont, pounding the old timber like it sought to erase decades of secrets. I stood in the parlor, the grandfather clock's pendulum slicing through the silence, its tick a mockery of grief. Upstairs, father's body lay still, his presence gone but his shadow heavy. Downstairs, Daniel, my brother, poured whiskey, the liquid sloshing carelessly. His wife, Clara, perched beside him, her smile sharp, predatory. They weren't mourning, they were scheming. Evelyn, my younger sister, sat by the fire, her hands folded, her face a mask of calm that hid a sharper edge. We didn't speak of love or loss. We spoke of the will, the land, the business, the wealth. Hollow Creek Farm was our legacy, acres of rich soil, barns fragrant with hay and history. To the world, it was prosperity, to us, it was identity. Father, William Holloway, had promised fairness, 3 children, 3 equal shares, he'd said, his voice steady, as if words could bind us. But death breaks promises. 2 days later, the lawyer arrived, a gaunt figure in a gray suit, his briefcase heavy with consequence. We gathered in the study, rain drumming the windows, the air thick with tension. He opened the will, and the world tilted. To my son, Daniel Holloway, I leave the farmhouse, the land, and all business assets. My breath caught. To my daughter, Evelyn, I leave the lake cabin and its property. Silence pressed against my chest. And to my daughter, Charlotte, my name, my hope rising, I leave my journals, photographs, and personal effects, as a remembrance. The room spun. No land. No wealth. Just memories. Daniel's smirk spread, oily and triumphant. Clara's hand tightened on his, her nails gleaming. Evelyn's eyes flicked to me, wide with something like guilt. The lawyer snapped his folder shut. The will is final. Daniel raised his glass, his voice smooth. To father, a man of tough choices. Clara's laughter was a needle, sharp and piercing. I sat frozen, rage swelling behind my ribs, words trapped in my throat. That night, I walked the fields alone, moonlight silvering the land I'd worked beside father, learning its rhythms, its secrets. Every fence post, every furrow, every creak of the barn, I knew them better than Daniel ever would. Yet he'd inherited it all. Daniel, the selfish one, who spent his days chasing pleasure, not purpose. Father had left me nothing but echoes. But echoes can carry a blade's edge when wielded right. The next morning, Daniel strutted into the kitchen, Clara at his side, already issuing orders to the staff as if he'd been crowned. Evelyn watched from the corner, her teacup trembling, her lips pale. "You can't just," she started. "I can," Daniel cut in, his voice dripping with arrogance. "The land's mine. Read the will." Clara's smile was venomous. "Don't worry, Evie, your little cabin's safe. For now." Their laughter scraped my skin. I clenched my fists, nails biting my palms, and said nothing. Revenge doesn't shout, it waits. I began gathering. Ledgers, receipts, emails. Daniel's carelessness was my weapon. He'd always been reckless, squandering money, chasing deals that glittered but crumbled. The farm wasn't his prize, it was his anchor, and I'd make it drag him under. Weeks passed, the farmhouse growing colder despite blazing fires. Daniel hosted lavish parties in father's study, pouring whiskey for business partners, Clara glittering on his arm. He played king, but his crown was brittle, and I was ready to shatter it. The first crack came from Evelyn. One night, she found me in the barn, her face pale, her voice a whisper. "Charlotte, father didn't mean this." My throat tightened. "The will." "Clara," she interrupted, her eyes sharp. "She got to him. I saw her, those last weeks, whispering, handling his pills. She twisted him." The name burned, Clara, the puppeteer, her smile sweet poison. If she'd swayed father, this betrayal wasn't his, it was hers. Daniel was too greedy to see her strings. "You're sure?" I asked, my voice low. Evelyn nodded, her hands shaking. My jaw clenched, rage honing into purpose. This wasn't just about land or money. It was about justice, about exposing Daniel and Clara to the world they thought they ruled. I'd unearth every secret, every lie, every crack in their empire. When the time came, my strike would be public, devastating, leaving them choking on their stolen legacy. This wasn't the end of father's story. It was the beginning of mine. The days after Evelyn's revelation carried a new weight. The Holloway farmhouse stood unchanged, creaking floors, drafty halls, the faint scent of whiskey from Daniel's endless parties, but I, Charlotte Holloway, was different. Grief had crystallized into resolve, a blade honed for justice. Daniel's carelessness was my opening. He'd always been reckless, squandering money on bets and fleeting pleasures, leaning on father's wealth to save him. Without father, his foundation was sand. I began in the study, late at night, when the house slept. The mahogany desk held father's pipe smoke, a ghost of his presence. I rifled through drawers, photographed ledgers, traced Daniel's financial trail, loans, debts, names of creditors who didn't forgive. The truth emerged: Daniel wasn't running Hollow Creek, he was bleeding it dry. Clara, his wife, was blind to it, or chose to be. She floated through the farmhouse in new gowns, hosting luncheons for local elites, playing queen of a stolen kingdom. Her crown was fragile, and I'd shatter it. One night, Evelyn found me in the kitchen, her face drawn, shadows under her eyes. "Charlotte, what are you planning?" she whispered. I met her gaze. "What do you think?" She hesitated, then spoke, her voice low. "Daniel and Clara, they're vicious when threatened." "Good," I said, my tone flat. Her eyes widened. "You're going to destroy them." I didn't answer, the truth hung between us, heavy and certain. Then Evelyn surprised me. "I want to help," she said, her voice steady. I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" She looked away, her fingers twisting. "Clara poisoned father's mind, I'm sure of it. And Daniel, he doesn't deserve this place." Her eyes met mine, fierce with conviction. "You're stronger than them, Charlotte. You always were." For years, Evelyn had been the soft one, the peacemaker. Now, I saw steel in her. I nodded. "Then we do this together." We dug deeper. Evelyn recalled fragments I'd missed, overheard whispers, Clara swapping father's pills, documents he'd hidden after her visits. We pieced together a portrait of deceit, Clara's manipulation, Daniel's greed, a will twisted by their hands. Evidence alone wasn't enough, I needed it to be public, undeniable, a blow they couldn't dodge. The chance came with Daniel's grand dinner, a spectacle to celebrate Hollow Creek's future for Vermont's elite, bankers, politicians, landowners. He saw it as his coronation. I saw it as my stage. The week before, I worked the town. I charmed bank clerks, pulled records of Daniel's debts, traced his reckless deals. Evelyn met father's doctor, her questions sharp, recording his stumbles when pressed about Clara's role. We built an arsenal, ledgers of unpaid loans, forged signatures, medical records hinting at Clara's interference. The night before the dinner, I lay awake, rain battering the roof, my mind replaying Daniel's smirk, Clara's laughter, Evelyn's confession. Tomorrow, their empire would crack. The dining hall glowed with opulence, chandeliers casting light on silverware, wine flowing, laughter ringing. Daniel stood at the table's head, his grin that of a conqueror, Clara at his side in shimmering silk, her hand possessive on his arm. Guests filled the room, their wealth glittering, unaware of the storm brewing. Evelyn sat across from me, her nod subtle but sure. I returned it, my pulse steady. As Daniel raised his glass for a toast, I stood, the room's eyes turning to me. Daniel's brow furrowed. "Charlotte, what?" I held up a folder, its weight like justice itself. Father built Hollow Creek on trust, I said, my voice clear, cutting through the chatter. But that trust was betrayed. Murmurs stirred. Clara stiffened, Daniel's jaw tightened. I opened the folder, revealing the truth: Daniel's debts to dangerous creditors, Clara's forged signatures on contracts, altered prescriptions during Father's final days. Each word was a hammer, each document a nail. Evelyn played the doctor's recorded stammers, his contradictions damning Clara's influence. Gasps echoed, chairs scraped, guests whispered in shock. Clara tried to laugh, her voice brittle. This is nonsense. Slander. But the evidence glowed under the chandeliers, undeniable. Evelyn stood, her voice firm, corroborating every detail. I closed the folder, my gaze locking on Daniel. This land was stolen. Thieves always pay. Silence fell, heavy as stone. Then chaos erupted, guests muttering, a banker hissing at Daniel, others storming out. Clara lunged for the folder, but Evelyn blocked her, eyes blazing. Daniel's empire crumbled before the dessert was served. But I wasn't finished. Exposing them was the spark, their ruin would be the fire. The night of Daniel's grand dinner didn't end in triumph. It closed in silence, heavy and damning, clinging to the farmhouse walls. The dining hall was a wreckage: spilled wine, overturned chairs, candle wax pooling like blood. Daniel stood at the table's head, his grip white-knuckled on his glass, face pale as death. Clara sat rigid, her eyes darting, lips sealed as if she could still weave a lie to save them. Evelyn and I stood firm, unflinching. This was no ending, just the opening blow. The fallout swept through Hollow Creek like a storm. By morning, the banker who'd stormed out spread the tale: Daniel's debts, Clara's fraud, whispered in diners, on street corners, at the courthouse. By day 2, creditors pounded at the gates, their demands sharp as knives. By day 3, Daniel's allies turned their backs, their loyalty as fleeting as his wealth. Clara tried to salvage her image, calling her society friends, crying slander, but her charm was tarnished, and in their world, that was everything. Evelyn and I watched from the farmhouse's shadows, her voice low one evening as another angry car sped away. It's working, Charlotte. I stayed silent. This was only the surface. The real strike was coming. Weeks of digging had uncovered the truth: a hidden draft of Father's will, unsigned but authentic, found in a locked drawer Evelyn remembered. It declared equal shares for us all, protections for Evelyn and me, a legacy untainted by greed. Clara had buried it, her forged signatures ensuring Daniel's control. Fraud. Deceit. I had the proof: ledgers, medical records, the doctor's recorded stumbles. I hired a lawyer, sharp and relentless, and we filed quietly, a blade hidden until the moment to strike. When the papers were served, Daniel's face was a storm of shock and rage, fear creeping beneath. Clara's composure cracked, her eyes wild. They knew they were losing. The legal fight stretched weeks. Daniel tried intimidation, bribes, even pleading with Evelyn in secret, but she was no longer the soft sister. She stood with me, unyielding. Clara unraveled faster, her charm crumbling into public outbursts, glasses shattered against walls, the farmhouse a cage of her own making. The town watched, their whispers turning to judgment. The courtroom was packed, reporters scribbling, locals leaning forward, the judge's gaze heavy with patience. I sat tall, my folder of evidence at my side, Evelyn's hand steady on mine. Daniel's lawyer floundered, Clara whispered frantically, but the truth was ironclad: forged signatures, tampered medications, the hidden draft. Each document was a blow, each revelation a wound. When the gavel fell, it rang like justice. The estate was torn from Daniel's grasp, Clara's fraud named aloud, her reputation shredded. But revenge doesn't end in a courtroom. It lingers, sinking teeth into the guilty until they feel every shard of pain they caused. Daniel spiraled, creditors seized his cars, his watches, his pride. He begged old allies, but doors slammed shut. Hollow Creek, the town he thought he ruled, turned its back, his name a curse. Clara fared no better, her friends vanished, her invitations ignored, her title as queen reduced to ash. She faded into silence, a shadow of her former self. Evelyn and I stayed at the farmhouse, not for greed, but to heal it. Hollow Creek wasn't just land, it was Father's heart, tarnished but not lost. With time, we'd rebuild it, honest and whole. One evening, we sat on the porch, the fields golden in the sunset, cicadas humming. Evelyn's voice was soft. "You did it, Charlotte." I looked at the land, its quiet strength mine at last. "No," I said. "We did." Her smile was small, real, the first true one in years. Peace settled over me, but beneath it, a truth burned. Revenge doesn't heal, it sharpens the scars, makes them eternal. Yet watching Daniel's empire collapse, Clara's name dragged through the mud, the farmhouse freed from their poison, I knew I'd do it again. Some betrayals demand blood, and I had spilled theirs. Thus ends the last will of Hollow Creek, a tale of a daughter who turned betrayal into justice, proving that the quiet ones wield the sharpest vengeance. Stay tuned for more stories where legacy is a battlefield, and retribution claims the crown.